your life is on a downward spiral and you haven't realized it yet. Cheap dopamine is the enemy. Every time you drink that soda, eat junk food or scroll endlessly or indulge in those distractions, you're tearing yourself apart. It's not just a bad habit, it's destroying your life. If you don't change, your future is written. Depression, overweight and poor health. You think you control it, but you're not. But you can escape this future. Today I will lay in front of you everything you need, but it will require focus, learning and action. If you don't want to take my word for it, that's fine. But know that I became a manager of a multi-million follower personal brand at 19 while building my business. This didn't happen because of scrolling. If you are prepared, I will walk you through the details of cheap dopamine, how it's ruining your life, and most importantly, how can you break free. The problem with cheap dopamine is that we have a positive feedback loop which is negative. Well, let me tell you how it works. So the brain loves dopamine. The brain, this is our brain, this represents our brain, loves the tasks which are related to dopamine. It has a positive feedback loop. If that task has dopamine attached to it, then our brain wants it more. If it knows that it gets dopamine by doing it, our brain tells us to do these tasks more. Now this couldn't be a problem because if you, let's say you would be a little child like this is you as a little kid, then you played soccer with your dad and you had dopamine and you wanted to do it more. Like, that is not a problem. This is something really good that works in us. Problems come from that when you do the bad habits that also gives you the dopamine. Eating junk food gives you a hell of a lot of dopamine, eating junk food, or scrolling that also give you a lot of dopamine, and any other tasks which are the bad habits which gives you dopamine will reinforce itself to do it more because of the positive feedback loop. And this is a really huge problem because if you know that it's bad but your mind knows that it gets dopamine from it, then you want to do it more. And this is why you are so attached to these bad habits. Now, this craving dopamine is not your problem. This is evolution. And how humans actually have evolved to be the humans right now, we had to live, we had to survive. And by surviving, what happened is that if we got the dopamine from some kind of acts, we wanted to do it more. And what these acts were: eating and mating, and I don't know, social bonding or something like that. These are the base activities which give you dopamine. And this is really important because if we wouldn't be doing this, like, we wouldn't exist. So that is really good for us because we have survived and we are here, but this is another big problem for us. If we wouldn't crave this dopamine, then we wouldn't be alive, but because if we crave this dopamine, we can go to the bad downward spiral in our life. But this leads to another problem of craving dopamine, because it's not a problem. Our brain actually has a dopamine baseline. Our brain is doing or creating or generating dopamine. So after a time, like this is time, our brain has a dopamine baseline of how much it creates and how much it needs. So it's naturally producing some kind of dopamine, but also it needs some from the outside world. So social bonding, XYZ things, you know. But if you indulge in those activities which give you a lot of dopamine, what will happen is that your mind starts to create less dopamine because it's so attached to these dopamine activities that it starts to develop less. And what will happen is that dopamine baseline, this red thing which you need, and this was the thing which filled out, like, I don't know, this was the amount how much your brain produced, and this was the amount which was required for you to not be depressed, because if you don't get dopamine you will be depressed and XYZ things. But what will happen is that as you start indulging in these activities which are bad, you want more and more dopamine because of the positive feedback loop. The task is easy to do, you get dopamine, you want it more. And this will create a loop of doing that tasks. And what will happen is that your brain knows that I shouldn't be producing dopamine because I get it easily from this task. Now from that, the problem comes that you want more and more dopamine because of having this dopamine after a time doesn't satisfy your dopamine needs. So if you have been scrolling for 1 hour, next day 1 hour is not enough, you have to do it more. And this dopamine baseline of yours starts to increase. And why this is bad for you is because if you are not scrolling, checking Instagram or doing anything like that every single second, then you feel depressed because you do not meet this dopamine baseline of yours. So when this is increased, you can know that your life is on the decrease. And the real problem here is that these activities makes you want it more and more. And this is the real problem. But how this affects your life? Let's look at that for a moment. Sorry. Tasks become hard. Because of your dopamine baseline is so elevated, you cannot perform a task which is not related to high dopamine levels. High dopamine. If you do not get high amounts of dopamine, what will happen is that your brain thinks that this is bad. I don't have the dopamine, let's do something else. I don't have the dopamine, I feel bad, I feel depressed, I feel lethargic. That's not good. And this comes to another problem, is that you cannot even focus. You could try to focus on a task, but you can't. And the reason for that is instant gratification. But just think about it for a minute. Are you focusing right now? Like, have you checked the comments? Have you checked the sidebar? Have you checked the title? Have you checked the description? Have you checked any other things which is derailing you from this video? Because if yes, then it means that you have a bad attention span, a really low attention span. And that is because instant gratification. And let me explain why. If you're so attached to these dopamine because your baseline has increased, if you need so much dopamine here, it means that you cannot do anything which is requiring more than 10 minutes or 10 seconds of focusing on something, because you need so much dopamine that you need to do any kind of acts which will give you more dopamine. So you're not checking your phone because you're, I don't know, ADHD person, because those are ton of problems, or what are those, but you're checking your phone every other second because you need gratification. Did someone like my post? Did someone DM me? Did someone? You want to check it. Why? Because you need this gratification, because your baseline has increased. And this is why your attention span is so dead. You can focus. But you can make this better. But how? Let me explain. How can you change? Well, the most important is to cut out 90% of the shit. To be honest, I have did this. I have no social media on my phone, nothing. I am not watching any kind of films, I'm not watching series, I don't do anything which is related with high dopamine stuff. I don't eat junk food, I don't drink sodas, I don't do anything. But still, I could cut out some things. Like I could cut out my family, but I won't do it because that is important for my life. But you have to cut out 90%. Cut out all the junk food, no junk food. You don't need that. You have to cut out also every kind of scrolling or social media or something like that, checking your phone whether someone has DM'd you or written to you. Stop it. Cut them out. It's destroying your life. Like, you cannot even focus for 1 whole minute on something without checking your phone. Please stop it. Now, after you have cut out everything, the next thing is delayed gratification. Delayed gratification is when you do something, you perform a task. This is a timeline. You perform a task on a timeline, and when you get the result, is delayed. So this is the time when you get the results. So for example, if you write a test in school, you will not get the results at that moment. You will get the results after, I don't know, 5 days, when the teacher has corrected the tests. But if this you can perform in every daily tasks or every kind of activities which you do, your life will change. There was studies done on kids who have been given a task or a decision, want one cookie right now, or 2 cookies in 1 hour. And those children who have chosen the 2 cookies in 1 hour, they have become exponentially much more successful than anyone else. And why is that? Because of delayed gratification. If you're not attached to this instant gratification, you are not attached to want, but you can do something without requiring the gratification of dopamine or just results, you can be much better. And how to do this? This is your question. Well, firstly you have to know what kind of things you do which is related to instant gratification. So if every morning you drink a coffee, that means that your coffee is connected with dopamine. You get that instant gratification after you wake up. This is why I cut out coffee. But if you do something like drinking a shake before gym, if you do the shake, you get dopamine. Now, how can you perform this delayed gratification is that, oh, I know that I'm drinking coffee every morning. Let's do this. I'm going to do something meaningful firstly, and after that drink the coffee. And if that is happening, what it means is that your whole system will understand that I'm not going to get dopamine until I'm not doing something important. So you do a task, perform a task which is important after that coffee and after that dopamine. What it means is that you're not attached to this dopamine, but rather you are attached to do something meaningful, and after that you get the dopamine. And this is how good habits are formed. Formed in a way of task, action, and result. Or not, sorry, trigger, action, result. If you want to form a new habit, what you need is a trigger to start that habit, an action, what you are doing, and the result. So, because our reward system is attached in the positive feedback loop of the things which we get dopamine from, right now, let's say that you want to read, but you hate reading. You really hate reading, but you want to start reading because you know it will change your life. You have to have a trigger. Firstly, I don't know, every morning you will read 10 pages. The trigger is the morning. The action is the reading. This is the morning. This is the reading. And the result will be, I don't know, drinking that coffee. And this way you're attaching that action with dopamine. And this way your brain wants dopamine by doing that action. So sorry, this way your brain wants to do that action because, oh, I get dopamine from that action, let's do it again, let's do it again, let's do it again, let's do it again, until a time that you don't really want the dopamine from it afterwards because you will get it by doing the action. And this is how good habits are formed, but also the bad ones. So this is how to perform delayed gratification. Do something meaningful before you do an act which gives you dopamine, because you will afterwards have a new good habit starting point. Next thing is purpose. You can easily change your life if you have purpose. If you don't, you're not going to change it. No one is going to change their lives from 0 to 100 like quickly if they don't have a purpose. And a lot of people change their lives only when they reach a point of they are having kids. And why is that? Because having a kid gives you a purpose. Gives you a purpose of wanting to teach them better, wanting to make their lives better. So you cut out everything which is bad. And this is purpose. But you also need a purpose. Whatever you do in life, if you don't have a purpose, then you're just floating. This is how I imagine it. Like this represents the galaxy, and you're just floating there like someone. But if you have a purpose, then you know the direction to go, you know what actions to do, what actions to take, and you just want it. So, how to have a purpose? Well, the first thing you have to ask yourself is, what do I want to do in my life? Like, what is in your life? What is in life for you? What is your goals? What do you want to achieve? If you have none, then you're just also in the race of doing nothing. Next, what is meaningful? If you're not doing something meaningful, no, you can't really have a purpose of I want to steal from everyone. Like, bro, please. But what you can do is think about what is something which I can do which will change my life, but also other people's lives. Because if you just want to change your life, that will not happen. That is why you have bad habits. Because you will say to yourself every new year that I will not eat junk food, I will not do this, not do that, and in 2 weeks later you will do it again. And why is that? Because you don't have a purpose. The only goal is for you to change. Like, no one gives a fuck about change. Like, you have to be better than just thinking about yourself. Like, you don't care about yourself, you care about other people. So you have to have a meaningful task, meaningful purpose, meaningful goal, which is representing a change in your life, in your community life, in the entire human beings on the earth's lives. This is how to have a purpose. And the third thing is going to get it. I have a video about how to create for businesses mission, vision, and principle, so you can check that. But yeah, this is how to change your life, and this is why you are struggling every day because of the cheap dopamine. It's really easy to change if you want to. Now, if you're a content creator, agency owner, coach, consultant, or anyone related to content creation, there's a link down below where I and other creators can help you get more views and make more money. This is what I do. Check it out.